Hi everyone, Stjepan here. In today's daily chess test, I have one of the most famous attacking combinations of all time for you to solve. This is a game by the legendary Rashid Nezhmetdinov, played in a simo, so not a very strong opponent, but still, this remains one of the most beautiful positions of all time. It's white to play. I'm not going to talk too much. Pause the video, get into your attacking mindset, and find the best continuation for white. Take your time. Take more than 15 minutes if you need it. I would suggest that you calculate all the way down. Don't stop after 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5 moves. Try to see it all the way through. Okay. Pause the video. Take your time. Good luck. See you in a minute. Okay. This position is tricky. Of course, white is a piece up for the moment. White has an extra knight, that much is clear, and white has the attack. But black has a lot of counterplay, and there are a few things that, well, you have to understand in order to solve this position. The first is, well, your rook is hanging on a1. The second one is your king is very weak in the center, and should this bishop move away anywhere and unpin, there is queen d3 as a resource, which could often prove either fatal for white or save black into a drawn position. So you have to be careful. Now, let's look at some continuations first before we get into the real stuff. Well, if you try a very obvious move like rook to b1, threatening bishop takes, and rook to b8, then it's, well, you just ruined the position. There's queen d3 check, and you have to take, otherwise he takes your rook, so king takes d3, and now bishop c6 check, you give the queen back, and after king e3, bishop a4, something like bishop to b2. This position is simply better for black, I think. I think the engine gives it as equal, but black has the bishop pair and an extra pawn. So rook to b1 simply doesn't work. If you try the second simplest move, bishop takes d7, then rook takes d7, and something like queen to b3, trying to trap the black queen if it takes on a1, so queen a1, bishop to b2, then black simply plays queen to b1, and if you try queen to b8, then rook to d8, and your best is a perpetual check. You don't really have enough resources to give up your rook on h1 as well. So bishop takes d7 doesn't work either. So now we have to be a bit smarter. We see that queen a1 is a problem, we see that queen d3 is a problem. So let's try being smarter. What if we try bishop to b5? The idea behind bishop to b5 is if he wishes to unpin, he would have to trade and allow you this trade with check, and then rook to b1 could be useful because the d3 square is covered. But now black has this very annoying move a6, and you have no choice but to trade on d7 and enter the same position that we saw previously. If you move your bishop, you lose your queen. So bishop to b5 doesn't work. Okay, so what can we do? Well, one more thing I would like to mention is that if you try bishop to d2, that also fails to queen d3, king takes d3, bishop c6, it's the same thing. If you try queen to a6, then you actually lose this position very easily. The idea is basically to cover d3, but now bishop to g7, and black is just about to castle. You have nothing in this position. Your best is probably bishop d7, rook d7, knight f3, and queen a1. So yeah, you're basically lost. So what can we do? This continuation is basically forced, unless black wants to lose, well, much sooner. The winning idea is queen to b3, and this I'm sure you did see. The question is, how far ahead have you managed to solve this? If you saw it all the way through, then you should compete in Grandmaster tournaments, and congratulations. So of course, if bishop takes bishop, then queen takes queen. If queen takes queen, then the Zwischenzug bishop takes bishop with check, and then a takes queen, and you're a piece up. So black only has one option. Black can take on a1, and that's about it. And now we chase the queen, bishop to b2. Of course, again, if bishop takes bishop, then bishop takes queen. So black has to play queen to b1. That's the only move. He could play queen d1, but that loses the queen. Okay, so queen b1. And now the continuation. When I was first analyzing this position, I was tempted to play the move bishop to d5. And now there's a threat of bishop takes f7 and knight to f3. But black has this amazing move c4, disrupting what you wanted to do. And the idea, another idea behind bishop d5 is that this defends the e4 pawn, but after c4, if you take with the queen, you lose b2. If you take with the bishop, you lose e4. So that doesn't work. So the correct continuation here is knight to f3. Okay, and this I'm sure you did see as well. Okay, so after knight f3, the queen is threatened. More importantly, white is threatening to take the bishop and play knight to e5, and pressure here, queen b8 threatened. So black basically has no defense. Again, if you take the bishop, I take your queen. So you have to take, and importantly e4 is defended, so you have to take the rook. And after queen takes rook, knight e5. If you take the bishop now, I take on f7 with mate, so that doesn't work. What else can you do? Well, there's basically only one move, and that's e6, defending f7. Okay, and now this is a mate in 12. If you saw this far, pause the video again and find the forced mate in 12. I know it's going to be hard, but it's pretty much a forced variation with very few branches black could go for, so I'm sure you can do it. Okay, so let's show it on the board. Bishop takes bishop. Rook takes, queen b8 check, okay, and rook d8, queen b5 check, king e7. If rook d7, then queen takes rook, so king e7. Now queen b7 check, king to f6, forcing the king into an awkward position. You don't discover with the knight, you play queen takes f7, king to g5 forced, knight to f3, another check, king to h5. King to g4 is also possible, but loses quicker. g4, king takes g4, queen takes e6 check, king to f4, bishop to e5, king takes e4, and now everything is mate. Moving the bishop is mate. Rashid Nezhmetdinov chose knight g5 mate, and game over. So coming back to the original position, if you manage to understand what's going on here, you are going to be able to reach the position in which you have a forced mate. So the basic idea is, well, queen b3, you cannot take my rook. And game over. Yeah, I hope you like this one. Okay, the second position I chose because the endgame I showed you yesterday is also by Richard Reti, and the ideas are similar. If you did manage to solve yesterday's test, yesterday's endgame position, then use the same ideas here. Again, it's white to play. Take your time, and yeah, I'm not going to say anything else. Good luck. Pause the video. See you in a minute. Okay, so this is another amazing board geometry themed endgame by Richard Reti, in which if you're playing white in a tournament game and you don't know these ideas, you probably resign. Excuse me. Because it's very hard to see any chances for white here. But, as we know, there are ways to use the geometry of the board to your advantage. So, it's white to play. The first move for white is obvious, king to g6. Okay, now we are going to use the same resources we used in yesterday's study to move your king towards two targets. One of them is going to be black's passed pawn, the other one is going to be our passed pawn. And black is going to be, well, black is going to have to choose between drawing one way or the other. So let's look at all the candidates. First, let's look at f5 and h5. They are easier to refute than king to b6. If black goes h5, trying to queen his pawn, then unbelievably we have time for king takes g7. This seems ridiculous, but after h4, we play king f6. And this position we saw yesterday. We are going to be moving towards both targets. We are going to be threatening king f4 and king to d6. If h3 is played, then king e7, and we are going to queen as well. h2, c7, h1, c8 equals queen with a draw. And if black tries king to b6, trying to, well, stop our pawn from queening, then king to e5. And again, we are threatening king f4 with a draw. So if king takes c6, then king f4 and draw. And if h3, then king to d6. And again, h2, c7, h1, c8 equals queen, same position as yesterday. So h5, well, is a draw. Let's have a look at f5. f5, same idea. If you mess it up here, then of course you do lose, but don't mess it up. King takes g7, same idea. f4, king f6, again, f3, same thing. We have to be doing two things at once. King e6, okay. King to b6, king to d6, and now we are going to queen our pawn. f2, c7, f1, c8. What you have to be careful about is not to go king to d7 in this position, which I hope you saw, because after king to d7, we have this position. You do both queen, but then black plays queen f5 check and you resign, because he has another passed pawn. Okay, so if both of these lead to a draw, let's try king to b6. So king b6, again, we take on g7, and now whatever black does, whichever pawn he pushes, doesn't really matter, we go to f6. If he pushes the h pawn, we take on f6. If he pushes the f pawn, we go king f6. So if h5, king f6, h4, we saw this position before, threatening this and this with a draw. And if f5, again, king f6, f4, king e5 has to keep pushing the pawn, otherwise if he takes here, we take here and an easy draw. So f3, and again king to d6, f2, c7, f1, c8 equals queen with a draw. I love these endgames by Richard Reti. I hope you like them too. I wish that, well, I wish that they help you enough for you to understand these so well that you spot them during a real game. Okay, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you liked today's positions. Let me know what you think about them. If you have any suggestions for positions, I would like to hear them. They are more than welcome. Yeah, thanks again. Stay tuned for more chess. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.